So we want to build this closed loop system that also has a whole reporting mechanism. So I can look anywhere in my sales process and say, how are we doing? How are my East Coast reps doing? West Coast reps, Central, North, South, or, by individuals, how are they doing? And how are we doing with customers? So we just could have that information at our fingertips. And that really did us well for about 16, 17 years. But now we've got a whole new business process alignment happening here. And really, this little globe with people around it is how social media and the web and CRM and social CRM is engaged and how it's changed. So what we teach in the new processes is really, we move you through the process the same, but many of the games have changed. Many of the ways we contact people, many of the ways we keep warm. I've got a whole system of keeping prospects warm using LinkedIn, which is the most popular Facebook type application for business. So how do we do that in a simple format that makes it work for us? In fact, I've been a big CRM user for many, many years. The LinkedIn profiles and groups and accounts that I have sort of built in are as important to me as my CRM system, and I go back and forth between those two on an ongoing basis. So we can explain that to you in future workshops, along with sort of how do we engage with case management, how do we engage with user communities. So it changes the strategy of many sales organizations. And I think this scares many sales organizations, because if you're back still 1994, you may not have engaged in social media. Maybe your company president still doesn't tweet. Maybe you don't have a corporate profile on LinkedIn, but it's becoming more and more important to your sales process, to your marketing ability, but also to your brand. How I engage in social media is very important to your brand, so you're seen as sort of a modern company and not an old type company. That's a different session, so let's just keep moving forward. So from a LinkedIn perspective, from my business, I look at who are the influencers that I use that give me projects, who are the people who have graduated or I've taught full contact selling to or implemented, and who are my prospects. I invite them into LinkedIn. Once they accept my invitation, I have groups built within LinkedIn for them. And from a Microsoft perspective, I have a Microsoft Success Group for end user customers, but I also have a Microsoft Success Group for people who sell and implement Microsoft CRM to help them through that as well. So I've got some different groups I've developed on CRM, and those groups really help me get my tweets, blogs, announcements, conversation events, and surveys out to people. So depending on your business, you may have a different social CRM strategy, but what I'm saying here is you've got to have one, and that's part of Salesforce Automation's success. So what do we do? How do we do this? And this is what it boils down to. First of all, we've got to go in and say, okay, what are our processes? What are we trying to sell? Who are we trying to sell to? What are we trying to maintain as a customer? Then I've got to go back into CRM and say, okay, I've got all these components, and this is where it gets tricky. How do I break that process down and distribute it amongst the leads, the accounts, the contacts, the opportunities, the service, the contracts, the marketing lists, and again, opportunity forecast management? How do I do that within CRM with the tools? And then, again, how do I use all these other components of CRM to make that process work? So what do I do when I integrate through Outlook, through SharePoint, through custom entities, through reporting, through dashboards, workflows? Powerful tool within CRM. Goals. This is one of the up-and-coming most powerful tools for CRM, so I can measure how people are doing against their forecast and have them set their goals in CRM. Templates, emails, team connections. There's a whole lot of other components to CRM. And then there's a lot of third-party pieces to CRM too. Marketing automation, mobility, utilities, what they call CRM accelerators that are available through the Microsoft website, depending on what industry you belong to. Social media applications such as Inside View, which allows us to put a contact into CRM and then go out and see what's going on with that company, with that person in social media, or the other way around, allows me to download contacts from social media into my CRM system. Very powerful time saver, web and vertical. So there's a lot to look at and a lot of pieces around CRM, but we've got to get them to match up to what is the sales process. That is the most critical piece that I've discovered over the year. Get the process right, and then let's go out and take all these pieces and embed them in the process. So what I've seen, CRM projects that fail, they become IT projects, right? So most of the time is on the system build, where the IT department developers get a hold of CRM and say, okay, tell us what you need, and they start programming the CRM interface. Okay, very little time is spent on planning and design. It's very difficult to take a manual process and embed it in CRM. You really need to re-engineer or fine-tune that process because you don't have the same steps. So if you use some kind of form-based Salesforce productivity system with a bunch of different forms that you fill out along the sales process, you don't need to do that anymore. We can handle that much differently, much more effectively and effortlessly within the CRM system. And then they spend very little time on user training. In fact, I've seen, $500,000 systems where they spend a few hours training people on how to use it and $450,000 on the budget on building it. I don't understand where this is coming from, but for some reason when it's a technical project, people just think there's some sort of keyboard osmosis that's going to happen. So here's what we do, and here's what we do really well, is we flatten this whole thing out and even it out. So time is spent reviewing your business. Time is spent mapping out processes. I got to tell you, do this. It's the most powerful thing you can do in a CRM project. Then we design the system. In fact, we design the system in Visio, not even in the native technology. That way groups can look at it, move fields around, build entities, do what they want, have lots of fun, and then we hand over the designs in Visio to the programmers. And what we find, the programmers take half the time to build the system as they do normally, and they get it 90% accurate the first time. In fact, many of the mistakes are only the mistakes that I put in the Visio sheet, because the programmer will follow the Visio sheet, and if I misspell something, they may misspell it, or if they add the wrong value to a field, it's because we did it, right? So as long as we can clean up our act, we can move these programmers more efficiently through the process. And then really, process training, huge part of this. Change management is going to be, the number one issue with CRM is how do we get them to change to do the new way, right? We need user training. They got to make sure they can use this. And when we put a user training program together, we really call it user adoption, because what we want to do is have a program that takes 2 to 3 months to make sure they know how to use it and that they do use it. Also, admin training. CRM is forever. You need somebody internally who can do things on the system, add things to the system, take things away, build a report, add a user, add data. That type of stuff needs to be done ongoing internally, and it's usually not an IT person. We want to make sure it's a business person. Again, all into user adoption, and really technical system management and business is really future. How is this going to impact those 3 areas? So we try to make CRM flat, not like this picture here, where it's focused as an IT project. And I think you're going to have much more success by doing this. So from a process perspective, here's a typical process map that we would develop for managing an opportunity. So you can see that there's many moving pieces to it. And then from a CRM opportunity, you can see here's some of the things that we want to measure within an opportunity. In this example, we said we want the contacts and roles, who's part of that opportunity, any notes to do with them, what the dollar value is, probability, who we're competing against, production date that this has to go in production, activities related to this opportunity, what are the products related, what are the buying stage of the customer, sales stage that we've got them at, what's the close date, when the estimated order date's going to come in. Again, we can do a whole thing on the SWOT. What's our strength, weakness, and opportunity and threat on this particular opportunity. Now, what's neat about this with Microsoft CRM, I can have workflows trigger this stuff. I can say we only need to do a SWOT if it's worth over $25,000 or $50,000. So we can build a lot of intelligence into the application. Is there a lead scoring, lead source from this? How are they going to use our product? So there's lots of things that we can start to define here and use here within the system that we can trap very easily in the system by using a few pull-down menus and workflows and things of that nature. So, full contact selling. Let me give you a quick commercial for us. 20 years of Salesforce automation experience, Salesforce automation process models, and SFA templates for over 30 industries. So we probably have a lot of these processes and a lot of the CRM screens developed for your industry already. We have CRM user adoption programs for sales teams and sales manager and administrators. We perform these systems online, so we can roll out a system through a series of live meetings and webinars, or we can do live events, or we can do keynote events at your sales meetings when you pull everybody together. So, thank you very much for attending the Best Practices session today. My name's Rick McCutcheon. The best way to get a hold of me is to send me a LinkedIn invite. Let me know that you saw this video, and I'll put you in the right Microsoft CRM Success Group, and we can tell you more about our future events. So I'm going to leave you with this. When selling becomes a process, you take care of most of your sales processes. I'm Rick McCutcheon at rickm@fullcontactselling.com. You can reach me at 800-480-5762, extension 200. Thank you very much for spending time with us today.